Hello, this is Angelo, and this is the sixth masterclass of Finish Stronger Challenge. Wow, six masterclasses already, which means we are also beginning the sixth week. And of course, I don't have to remind you that I truly have to congratulate you and thank you for being here because it is so rare for people to be consistent and persistent on their goals and be disciplined enough to follow up on their initial contract with themselves, which you made also in the beginning of this challenge. And most of us are quite used to challenges being, like 3, 5, 7 days long. This is a 100-day challenge. This is the 10th year I am doing it in a row. I know how demanding it is, but also it is extremely rewarding for the very few that will make it till the end. Of course, I also want to remind you that it is time for you to switch off your phone or turn off any kind of notifications and all possible distractions. And as I like to say, for the next 30 to 45 minutes in this world, it's just you and me. And what we will be talking about here, and today's subject is so valuable, so important, because we will be talking about how actually we can upgrade our habits. And most of you, if not all of you, have discovered by now in life how hard it is to upgrade or change a habit that has been piling up for years, if not decades. Also, I want to remind you that you are more than welcome to take notes, but also remember that you will be having the replay as well. So now you can focus if you want on what we are talking about here, and you can watch the replay and keep as many notes as you wish. Last but not least, I want to remind you that we have crossed the point of no return, which means now the only thing that we're focusing on and the only, let's say, outcome that is allowed in our consciousness is our destination, our number one priority for this year. This is how we will be finishing stronger. Now, the Finish Stronger journey continues. Last week, we saw that it is extremely important to focus on the inner change first and actually be the change, and this will make you do better and then have more. Now, this week, we will be focusing on how actually we change these habits. How do we upgrade the habits that no longer serve us to the ones that are basically part of the operating system of our super self. Of course, there is a question that is basically, the way I see it, most probably the most valuable of all. And that question is, how do I feel right now? Especially when we want to finish stronger, simply because every kind of energy, if you want to go from point A to point B, that is change, right? That requires energy. So the bigger the gap, the more energy you need, and the better you feel, the more energy you have. Meaning, if you truly want to arrive at your destination, to land at your destination, as we like to say, as fast and as easy as possible, you want to have high levels of energy. And this is why it is vital for you to ask yourself many times during the day, how do I feel right now? And then apply the exercises of perspective, forgiveness, love, gratitude, and happy landing to upgrade your emotional state so that you can go about doing the highest value actions towards your number one priority. But now I want us to take a very short trip to the past. So I want you to hop in to this DeLorean with me, like Marty McFly would do, and we will go back to April 23rd of 2017. And why is that date important? Because this is the date of my very first seminar. And as I was preparing for this seminar, of course, all the imposter syndrome and all the limiting beliefs kicked in at the very same time. And I was thinking to myself, wait a minute, this is going to be a 4-hour-long seminar. How on earth are you promising that you will have, like a transformation and a huge change in people's lives in 4 hours when Tony Robbins is doing 4 days in UPW and way more with Date with Destiny and so on. So I was trying to explain to myself how I will leave an imprint in the audience's mind, the difference between conscious and subconscious, so much that from then and on, they will take into account how hard is it to consciously steer ourselves to a better future. And the way I did it, the way I thought it would be, like very illustrative, would be to give an example of my very first computer, which was, if you know this, back from the 80s, the mid 80s, the ZX Spectrum, and that had 40K RAM, if you can believe that. I mean, most calculators now have way more than that. And of course, I compared it with what was a really powerful computer back then, which was IBM's Watson. And I said, basically, this is like the difference between the conscious and the subconscious mind. So the conscious mind is like the ZX Spectrum, and the subconscious is like Watson. They are incomparable. There is no way for Spectrum to win at any kind of challenge, right? So why am I telling you this? Because your habits are your operating system. So if you ask your mind, if you ask your subconscious, I want this, and there is no kind of operation within that system that supports that desire, it is virtually impossible for you to succeed. And now I want you to make like a very powerful brain tattoo of this. You cannot beat your subconscious. You cannot put, like a lot of strenuous effort and change your subconscious, simply because energy flows where your focus goes. So it's not by effort or by willpower that you will change. And this was one of my biggest mistakes in the very beginning of my personal development. So when I started reading Think and Grow Rich and The Secret, and then I listened to Tony Robbins' personal power and all these things. Within months, I did a few hundred books and programs. It was insane. But at the same time, I was so keen to have better, higher results that I was pushing myself to change. And this is not how it works. This is not how the subconscious is structured and is awaiting for your orders, because your subconscious will never tell you, no, I'm not doing this. It's just a program. It's just the capacity of the operating system, and all you need to do is to be able to reprogram your subconscious, right? This is all you have to do. So the question now, of course, is how do I upgrade my habits? It's simple. Number one, there are basically two steps, two things that you have to do. Number one is to become a conscious observer of your life, of your thoughts, of your actions. And you will notice many, many, many patterns. You will find yourself, like making your coffee in exactly the same way, or ordering your coffee in exactly the same way from exactly the same place every single day. Or you will take the exact same route to take yourself from home to the office, things like that. And at the same time, you will have some thought and action patterns that are for sure not supporting your dreams and your number one priority for 2023 for this Finish Stronger Challenge. So this is a habit. This is not me, is what you want to say every single time this happens from now on. You want to remind yourself that this is just a pattern. And this radar of yours that will cover all your activity during the day, and you will say to yourself now, I'm conscious. I'm like a police officer of my mental and habitual activity from now on. And I will be very focused on what is going wrong, basically what is going against the direction that I want to take my life and my business. So what am I looking for, Angelo? What are these patterns that you're talking about? One example would be I begin dieting, exercising, and after 3 days, I quit. That's one pattern. Many people fit into that category. Or I complain about my debt, yet I find myself spending way more than I am earning still. So nothing is changing, basically. I am increasing my debt rather than doing something serving about it. Or another pattern is that I am complaining about my partner's behavior when at the same time I am not improving or upgrading my behavior. That's another pattern. That's another non-serving pattern because, as we've said in the previous webinar, you will be the change in your life. As crazy as it sounds, we are the ones, we have only one job to do, as we said before, to change ourselves. So, basically, your spontaneous words, what you say basically, right, and what you do, demonstrate, prove to yourself which are your dominant, non-serving or limiting beliefs and habits. This is it. By the things that you say and the things that you do, you prove to yourself that this is a limiting belief and this is a limiting habit that I have. Because once you are on this spontaneous mode, it is just your subconscious operating at that point. So, for example, we are in the same car and we have like a very important and at the same time a conversation that you're so focused on, you won't miss a word from what I'm saying to you, right? And you're driving to a specific place, and we arrive at that place, and you ask, how did we get here? I cannot remember myself, like turning left or right or doing this or that or the other, stopping at the traffic. Did we stop at the traffic lights? Like, because you were so focused, you were so consciously attentive to what I was saying to you and how you would respond to what I'm saying to you, that your subconscious took over and drove you safely with your program, with the program that you have, to point B, to that destination. This is how important it is for you to have the programs, and basically all it takes for you to arrive at your desired destination. Another amazing example that I discovered like a couple of years ago. As you know, from January 1st, 2015, up until now, I'm writing at least one daily shot of inspiration every single day. So basically the previous day, I am writing for the day after, right? And sometimes I am not, it's what we call, like writer's block. I am not in a creative state, and I find myself completely unable to write a couple of words. I mean, after doing almost 9 years of writing every single day, that happens. But you know what? I realized a couple of years ago that the moment that I find myself with this writer's block, and I really, really, really want to write, like a very inspiring message to you in the shortest period of time, of course, because this is not the only thing that I'm doing during the day, as you can imagine. So what happens is I realize at some point that when I have this writer's block and I'm really feeling, like I cannot do this right now, I was unconsciously steering my attention and making the clicks and opening the browser and having like a sports website on. I didn't want to follow the sports news at that moment. This was just an impulse for me to relieve that pressure that I couldn't write at that point. So I was doing it 1, 2, 3, 5 times. And at some point I realized, what am I doing here? Why is this website on? Like a robot, literally like a robot, I was opening this website without even realizing it. And I was going through a couple of articles before I realized that this is happening. And I would, like close the browser and have myself on the email that I was writing for you. This is how powerful some subconscious patterns can be. And they are, always remember this word, they are sneaky. Meaning that they will be happening in such a way that you will be asking yourself, not asking, you will be telling yourself, I'm going in the very right direction. I have amazing willpower. I am committed. I will finish stronger this year. I will achieve my goals. I will create, like some amazing results for me and my business. This is all you're saying consciously, and your subconscious is writing a completely different movie that you will be watching in the upcoming weeks and months. This is how powerful that is. So what you're looking for is these patterns that you can recognize, and for sure, they're not taking you where you want to go. Now, number 2, focus completely, entirely, monomaniacally, 100% on what? On the habits of your super self. But Angelo, I have not met my super self. How on earth would I know which habits my super self has in order to arrive at my destination? Because let me remind you, yes, your super self is a figment of your imagination, but what matters is that your super self is already living, staying, residing at the end of this year, having already achieved what you want to achieve. This is the definition of your super self. And I know that it is a figment of your imagination, but for your subconscious, what you imagine and what you perceive as reality, because you perceive it, it's not a reality. What you perceive as reality with your senses is exactly the same thing and produces exactly the same emotional and brain patterns. Patterns again. This is what we're looking for. Different patterns, going from a losing streak to a winning streak, going from a disempowering state to an empowering state. These are the patterns. So, how do you change habits? We've gone through this many times before and from different angles, and this is a very powerful one because we're talking about repetition and intensity. This is what we've been covering up until now. And I want to remind you a bit of physics. I am a geeky engineer sometimes, but it helps because the laws of physics are, whether we like it or not, they're there for us. I mean, we cannot change physics, right? So we better know a few stuff. So if you want to go from point A to point B, you need energy. And energy is power times time. So if you want to compress the amount of time to achieve something, you want to raise your power. And this is where emotional intensity comes in. This is why we say that you can change habits by repetition, like doing over and over again something new, something that is serving, or you can have, as we will see a bit later, a very popular example, you can change, like truly in a heartbeat. You can. And there is a third way that is, I mean, this is the first time that I am officially covering it. And this is very powerful. And that is sneakily. Because if your subconscious is sneaky enough to show you, to demonstrate you some kind of feeling of change, and at the same time keeping you where you are right now, stuck to the things that you don't want, thinking that you're changing, why not play this game? Why not put yourself on that state and say, you know what, subconscious, you're in for a treat. I will sneakily come into you through the window or the back door, and I will reprogram you so that you can make my dreams a reality. So, what that means, if it feels strenuous right now to do anything, it means it's not a habit. So, for example, when I started running again, last year after I tore my Achilles tendon. My first run was not a run. It was a very slow walk. And I had, of course, using both canes at the same time. And it was about 300 meters, which is less than a quarter of a mile. This was my first run. And it was very strenuous. And I was doing my very best to change and to upgrade this state because I was used to running 5 or 10 kilometers, like 3 to 6 miles. So how on earth am I going to recover this? It was strenuous. It wasn't a habit. Now, if you tell me, let's go out to walk a couple of miles or run a couple of miles, it is, to me, it is as easy, as accessible as breathing. I mean, I would do it without even noticing it. And this is very important. Also, last year, it's painful only to remind myself these cases. Last year, it was hard for me to go up, like this high, this like a step this high. And now I can climb like flights of, how many levels without even, changing the pace of my breath. This is also a pattern that I have created. We have thought patterns and we have action patterns. So what you're looking for is automation, feeling that something that you are doing is not strenuous. So let's do a bit of history, or not so much of a history, but what is described in the classes as mythology. And I want to take you to the time that Odysseus, as we say in Greek, or Ulysses, if I remember correctly, in English, came across the sirens. And the sirens were prohibiting basically Odysseus to move on simply because they were so attractive. And of course, he had to tie himself up on the boat so that he will not, not being able to withstand the desire to go to the sirens, he had to do something about it. Same thing goes with your conscious decisions on shifting your attention, shifting your thought patterns and your action patterns, meaning your beliefs and habits, to the direction where you want to go. And now, I want you, because you promised you will play 100%, I want you to remind yourself once again that I take full responsibility for my attention. I am attentive of my attention, and just because Angelo truly wants to install this information in my mind right now, I will play 100% in a game that we're about to play together, which may not be as fancy and as desirable to you. There is a bit of pain in that game, but there is a purpose behind it. And I want you to stick along for not more than a minute to demonstrate to you, so that you can demonstrate to yourself how important it is for you to be protective and attentive of your attention. Now, what we will be doing together, and of course, if you're not just listening, but if you're watching this right now, I want you to focus here, focus on what I will be presenting, and what we will do in the next few seconds is we will repeat 10 times together the word war. War, 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 war. What just happened? Where is your attention right now? Isn't it here? Isn't it at war? What about this? Let's play another game now. We will repeat happiness 10 times. Happiness, 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 happiness. Where is your focus? Where is your attention right now? Some would say it's not at happiness yet because you've said war before, so my mind is still there. Now you've got yourself a lesson. You don't repeat something 5 times or 10 times or 33 times or whatever the number is. You repeat it as many times as you have to so that you can install the serving habit that you want so that you can get where you want to go. It's not a matter of a number. It's a matter of doing it until. This is the game-changing word. I repeat until it becomes automatic. I repeat it until it becomes part of my operating system. This is all you have to do. Now, going to the second point, this was repetition. Now let's talk about intensity, and the very simplest example that I can give you is that when you were very young, maybe your mother or your grandmother told you, don't touch this, it's really, really hot. And of course, you had to find out, right? So what did you do? You touched it, and it was hot, and it was painfully hot, and you never, ever did it again in your life. In just one heartbeat, you installed a new habit, not to touch a burning stove or a plate. That's about it. So when people tell you that it takes 21 days, 30 days, 66 days to create a new habit, they're all wrong. It's not a matter of days, it is a matter of how intense an experience is for you to install that habit in your operating system. Does it make sense? One heartbeat is enough for you to upgrade your operating system, to upgrade your habits. Another amazing example that I have for you is from a person that I truly admire, Ed Milet. And at some point, Ed Milet did some, he got some blood tests, and he wanted to upgrade his well-being. And the doctor that was with him told him it would take about a couple of hours to get the results. Maybe I'm not telling this story exactly right, but for sure, what I want to leave you with is right, is exact. So it will take about a couple of hours. And Ed Milet said, okay, so I will come back. So he said he went for a burrito for lunch as he was waiting for the blood test results. And when he came back, the doctor was sitting against him, and he asked, you have a son, right? And yeah, Ed Milet said, yes. Would you like to be at his graduation party or not? So Ed Milet was saying, no, like, what are you talking about? I am here for my results and, for you to give me some advice about my nutrition. Give it to me and I will be going. And he said, I also know, I think that your wife is pregnant, right? And it's a girl. And Ed Milet says, yes, it is a girl. And so do you want to give her at her wedding, or it could be someone else who will do it for you? And Ed Milet was, like, truly, what is going on here? What could be on this paper for him to tell me this? So he said, if you want to be at your son's graduation, if you want to be at your daughter's wedding, you will do exactly as I'm saying. So this is a very powerful way for you to convince yourself or others to change. And this, again, can happen in a heartbeat, virtually in a heartbeat. Definitely not in 21, 30, or 66 days or 200 days. This is how important, especially when you say to yourself, I truly want to finish stronger, I truly want to upgrade myself, achieve the very best by the end of the year, and prepare myself for 2024 and on. This is how important it is. Now, what is the sneaky way to go about it? How can you upgrade even more your capacity, your ability to upgrade your habits, to change your habits effortlessly? So this is how you do it. In the same way that you train your pet to do something. So every time you want to do something that it's not yet habitual, so there is some kind of effort, you want to give yourself a little treat simply because in any way, shape, or form, of course, the more serving, the better, right? And when you give yourself that treat, there is a little dopamine kick on your brain, which says, I want that again and again and again. This is basically the same thing that happens, with alcohol, with smoking, with drugs. Everything has to do something about, making these droplets basically of dopamine happen, right? So, for instance, you might have like a craving for a sweet or a chocolate bar or something, right? So you might tell yourself, I will get that chocolate bar, I will have it, but I will not drive there. I will walk like a couple of miles to get it and a couple of miles back. So two things will happen. First of all, is that you will exercise, which was basically one of the habits that you wanted to install anyway, if that is the case. And the second thing, when you're back, you will feel so energized that you will either forget about the candy bar altogether, or you will have a small bite as a recognition of your effort, and not because you have a craving, because you've proven to yourself that there was no craving. It was just another habit. So what are you saying again? It's not me, it's a habit. There's no such thing as a craving if you don't have it a minute later, right? Now, these micro rewards are one of the most powerful ways for you to convince your subconscious to change, basically. It is a very powerful change and upgrade facilitator, and this is like your bonus for you to upgrade and elevate the time and the momentum that you have right now towards finishing stronger, towards having more upgraded habits in your operating system. An example I want to give you with that is how Zig Ziglar went about it, the great Zig Ziglar. When he wanted to start running so that he can improve his physique, what he said was that my first run was from my doorstep to the post box, to the mailbox. That was it. A few meters, a few yards, basically. And then I went to the corner of my block, and at some point I was running marathons. It is the same way. What he did was sneakily upgrading his habits towards running. He didn't put himself into the position to run 5 miles on first day and a couple of days later feeling, like his whole body sore and never running again. He didn't do that, which would be intensity, by the way. So you can have emotional intensity, but not physical intensity. It's not serving enough. You will quit a bit later, right? Because it will be so painful that it is basically exactly the opposite of what we want to achieve. Now, that said, when will you change? That is the question. Because let me remind you, as we've said in the previous masterclass, if not you, who? You are responsible for finishing stronger. You are responsible for your life, for your business. You are responsible to make these upgrades. And when? Now. These are the two words that you want to remember, basically. Me and now. I will be the change, and that change will happen now. And now I know how, right? I know that I have the tools of emotional intensity, of repetition, and I can also sneakily upgrade my subconscious mind so much that I can achieve what I want by the end of the year. So, last but not least, your homework. We cannot leave you without homework, right? So, number one, activate your consciousness radar. So be on the lookout for these non-serving patterns. Number two, when you find yourself doing something that is no longer serving, say to yourself, this is not me. This is just another non-serving habit, and now I know what to do about it, right? and how to go about it. Number 3, there are some, as you probably remember, as Tony Robbins is saying, the quality of your life is bound to the quality of your questions. So how about this super question? How does my super self think and act? Or what would my super self do right now? These are super questions, meaning they can help you upgrade your state a lot and really, really fast. Last but not least, upgrade your engagement in our group, simply because by asking questions, you will get answers. By sharing your wins, even if they are micro wins, even if they don't have anything to do with what we've discussed here, and it is something that you want to give credit to yourself, you help others grow as well. And we collectively elevate our energy and our consciousness and our commitment, because people love to hear winning stories. It is inspiring. And last but not least, if there is someone that truly will find this useful right now, if they're in a challenged position in their life, or if they want to upgrade their life or their business and they don't know how, they cannot engage in a higher state of consciousness or a higher state of performance, invite them to the group. And of course, this is how we all become better. Last but not least, I want to remind you once again that you deserve everything you want, and we all deserve your best self. See you next Tuesday with the 7th masterclass. Until then, we will be hanging out on the Facebook group with lots of action. See you next week. Ciao, ciao.